Also, learning how to say no was forced upon me. There is a situation in college that I don't talk about, and I have not really talked about. And I suppose the purpose of this podcast is to share my story. It's a podcast of storytelling and being vulnerable. So here it is. You're listening to the Feed the Soul podcast. We're talking about tackling tough stuff, chasing dreams, and figuring out who we really are. Each episode ends with a word of advice or encouragement, a nugget of inspiration to empower you to dream big and take that leap of faith into the wild adventure of life. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Feed the Soul. I'm your host, Savion, and today it's just me. We are talking about pace. Today, we are serving face. Just kidding. Yes, serving pace, Pace. I wasn't going to do that first joke, but then I thought, well, it gives people a little more about who I am if you get the reference, serving face. But I want to start this episode with a question. Do you remember the first moment, that moment or moments that you said to yourself, damn, I am doing way too much and I need to slow down? That is the pace that we're talking about today. Kind of like that pace of life. And that's this episode. And I guess I'll start with saying, I'm not telling you to slow down. This isn't me. I never want that to be the case. Like an episode saying that this is what you need to do. If that is what you get out of the episode, amazing, great, awesome. That you say to yourself, damn, that was some good advice. I'm going to slow down. It's also just an opportunity to reflect on your pace. Where am I right now? What's going on? So let's dive into that main course and tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to this thought, to wanting to talk to you about pace. My first experience or memory of, oh shit, I'm doing too much, was junior year of college. Junior year, my third year of school. It was homecoming time, so fall semester, and I was nominated to be on homecoming court, to be potentially homecoming royalty. And one of the things that is encouraged of you when you're on homecoming court is to go to all of the events throughout the week, to let yourself be seen, represent yourself, because it's a voting thing. So more people see you, maybe the more votes that you get. And so there's usually like one event per day, Sunday through Saturday. Sometimes there's 2 or more events per day. And so if you just like imagine one person going to at least 7 events throughout the week, possibly more, combined with classes, other organizational maybe meetings or events. And also that year I was in my pre-student teaching. And so I was starting to get into the classroom. I was studying education. And so I was starting to get into the classroom and like experience it firsthand and what it's like to actually be a teacher in the classroom. So that week I had been, it was great. I mean, everything. I was like riding this high, right? I mean, usually it was like, if you think of it as a honeymoon phase, I was just feeling good. I was riding this wave. I was feeling great. Afterwards, I will say I was crowned homecoming king. And so the following weeks, for some time, there's still more events to do. And again, you continue to ride this wave of being crowned homecoming king. You're asked to do a few more events around the university, around campus. I did do some shooting for a radio station, did some commercials. I guess going with that, there's a lot more that I was asked to do. At that same time, which a lot of people don't know, at that same time, I was feeling depressed. Now, I didn't have words for that feeling. So while I was like riding this high, I was feeling good about life, I was also battling not wanting to be a teacher. And while I was in the classroom, I was like, I don't know if this is for me, if this is something that I actually want to do, which was really tough to even process because, again, I'm in my third year of school. The fourth year, I should be like student teaching, I should be preparing to graduate. And now I'm like having this aha moment of, is this even something I want to do? I ride out the semester and we get into the spring semester, and again, depression or this feeling of losing control or being lost continues. I spent a lot of time sleeping, skipping class, sleeping, maybe going to events, maybe not, sleeping. There's just a lot of tiredness, and later learned that I was also feeling stress. My body was in overdrive from homecoming and all the stuff going on, but also school. I talk about doing all these other events, the commercials for the radio station. I was a yes guy in college. You asked me to do something, I'll do it for sure. I said a lot of yeses to engagements and to events. And again, I started to think about my pace. That happened actually quite a bit. I didn't call it pace, but it was just like, wow, I have a lot going. I wrote down everything in my planner and everything was color coordinated. And I remember I can see it in my head how many colors were in there and how much was going on, that I did talk to myself often, but like, I need to slow down. I want to cover three main things today. So out of that situation came the need to find strategies and ways to, one, release and relieve stress, find stress relieving tactics. Two, learn strategies and ways to say no. And three, making sure and making myself a priority and making time for myself. So those are the three pieces I want you to take away from here at the end of this episode. We'll revisit it, but starting with stress relievers. I mean, let's be honest, we've all heard of stress relievers. We need to find ways to relieve stress. We need to find ways to relax the shoulders or release the stress from the hips, from the jaw, because from clenching or from shrugging, it's a lot. We've all maybe have learned or heard of ways to do that, which could be finding a hobby that doesn't involve work, or maybe that you're not necessarily being paid for. For instance, crocheting. Crocheting, people do get paid to crochet hats and scarves for people. And it can definitely be stress relieving. I think it becomes stressful when there's a deadline that you need to meet. And maybe you're like getting to that point of, I'm getting too close to that. You're feeling stressed. Whereas if you are making a blanket for a niece or a nephew that's going to be born, or for a friend's baby who's going to be born in 8 months, like, I'm just doing this out of the kindness of my heart because it feels good to me and I want to give something to the baby. So it's still something for someone else, but there isn't expectation, I guess you could say, to it when it comes to relieving stress. Going for a walk, going for a bike ride, watching TV, or going to the movies and living in this fictional world, right, where you're not thinking about everything that needs to be done. For me, it was playing volleyball in a way. I loved spending time with the team and going to volleyball practice. I think the most stressful part was practice was 10 to midnight twice a week. That was the only time we can get into the gym. And so when I thought about like having to work early in the morning or having had a full day of things, like, oh, now I have to go to volleyball practice, I guess that was kind of stressful. But it itself wasn't. I felt great. It was fun. It was a great team. It was also spending time out in nature by myself on campus. There's this really nice green space, this park. And I remember Tracy Eiler, she said to me once, Savion, I think you're more introverted than you think you are, which for me was like really interesting because everyone who knows me to be this extroverted, outgoing guy. And again, I think I still get filled. My bucket is still refilled by being around people versus an introvert where you might be, refilling your bucket by being by yourself. And I've learned that I need to do both of those things. We all need to do both of those things. We all need to spend time with ourselves and recharge and just be. So when it comes to pace and what stress reliever might work for you, those moments when you're saying, oh shit, I'm doing too much. It can simply be looking at your to-do list and just knowing that there's too much on there. It's too big of a to-do list. And maybe taking a breath when you look at that. And honestly, that might be it. Closing the eyes, take that breath, look back at it, and then prioritize what needs to be done first. In that situation, in college, I had to learn how to say no. I mentioned I was a yes guy. Anytime I was asked to MC an event, host an event, for example, or go to an event or do the commercials for the radio station, I did it because partly I was a people pleaser. I wanted people to like me, and I also had this idea that people had an idea of who I was or should be, and I kind of played to that. I was trying to be the person I thought people wanted me to be. And I mean, it's a phase if you can, again, spend time with yourself and learn that about yourself and can break out of that. People pleasing also wasn't a term that I knew, but it was something I had to learn. Also, learning how to say no was forced upon me. There is a situation in college that I don't talk about, and I have not really talked about. And I suppose the purpose of this podcast is to share my story. It's a podcast of storytelling and being vulnerable. So here it is. So like I mentioned, junior year is a lot of things going on, homecoming and pre-student teaching, and then like processing whether I want to do teaching and finish through that. The spring semester was an 18 credit course. It was in the classroom. So I had my own classes as a student. And that was where you continue to learn philosophy and classroom management and things to take into the actual classroom that we were practicing in. But because I skipped a lot of classes, really what happened was I failed to do a really big piece of one of the classes, a paper I had to write that I did not do, and I ended up failing that class. But because that semester everything was in one, all of my personal classes overlapped, were intertwined along with pre-student teaching. You fail one class, you fail everything. So I did indeed fail out of college after my junior year. Embarrassing moment for me. I actually didn't know that I did until it happened. Long story short, I had to interview to get back into school. So I met with a board of teachers, and I don't know what maybe all their titles were, but like 4 of them at a table, and I interviewed to get back in and like what happened, Savion, this semester that got you to where you are in failing this class? We talked about strategies for me for that next fall semester. I had to write a paper. It was quite a bit of things that I needed to do to get back in. And I remember there's even 1 or 2 teachers on that panel or board that I knew, And it was so, oh, it was so embarrassing. I did get back in. And one of the things I talked with my advisor about was changing my major. I was like, I don't think I actually want to be a teacher. I don't think I want to do that. And she said, well, you're already in your third year, or you just finished, you're in your fourth year. Now, if you change your major, you're going to communications and media studies is what I wanted to do. And look at me now. She said, you have to be in for like 2 more years. So 3 years total. Gosh, it gets me itchy, like even talking about this. So I didn't change my major fully. I switched from elementary and early childhood to middle level education and kind of finished through that route. I ended up not teaching. Because of what happened, I also talked about how I was feeling depression and stress, and it was recommended that I go to therapy. So that's where I started that process. And we talked about me wearing a mask of everything's okay and how I can break out of that and start living truthfully. And part of that was learning how to say no. I needed to start making time for myself. And so, again, it was forced upon me to learn how to say and to start practicing saying no. One of those things I had to say no to was being a resident assistant. I had done that for 2 years, and that was another thing that I was taking care of junior year. Absolutely loved being a resident assistant. But the thing is, I spent so much time giving to my guys. I had 32 guys on my wing, and I was all about community. So I always had like this bowl of candy in my room, and I'd do candy rounds. And so if people were studying, doing homework, whatever, when I did my rounds, they got a piece of candy. It's also an opportunity for me to just get to know them a little bit more and to continue building relationship. And so when you think about 15 rooms that I'm going to having a 15, 20-minute conversation a couple nights a week, that's a lot of time that I'm giving to other people, encouraging them to do their homework and encouraging them to put the remotes, the controllers of their games down and to study, where I wasn't doing that myself. I had to let that go, and that was really challenging for me. I also had to say no to other organizations and not do that. That was a bit of a stretch as well. There's an event I remember specifically being asked to MC. I was like, I know I should say no. I know that this isn't something that I'm really interested in, but I've not said no to MCing an event before. So I was like, yes, I can do it. No, I shouldn't do it. But can I do it? No, I shouldn't do it. I ended up saying no, and I felt crushed afterwards. I was like, holy shit. I just said no, like literally for the first time in this capacity. They obviously found someone else to MC the event. And after that, I actually wasn't asked to MC or do another event for some time. And I thought to myself, what did I just do? Did my name get erased off the list of people to contact to do events? Other doors opened as they do, right? And I just found other things to enjoy. It was just a good opportunity. And so I want to give some more examples of ways to say no. One thing I learned later on in life is when you do tell people no and you create boundaries, people respect you more. They respect you for taking care of yourself and setting up those boundaries. And so one of the simplest ways to say no to something when you're feeling stressed or want to just control your pace is to say, no, thank you. Right? Really simple. But because where I live in the Midwest, sometimes that's a little too direct. We like to sugarcoat things and beat around the bush. And so it might be, well, I don't quite have the time for this, or I have already a lot of projects that I'm working on. If you're thinking about professionally, I already have a lot of projects going on. Is there someone else that is available or that you have in mind to do this project that you can ask them first? Instead of like yes right away, is there other people that you can ask to do this and then come back to me, and kind of setting up that boundary at that point. Another way, it doesn't serve me, asking yourself, does this serve me? Does this bring me joy, this event that they want me to do? And if it doesn't, that might be a great opportunity for you to just practice saying no. Obviously, you can Google different ways to say no. And that's one of the things that I did was Google find ways to say no. Again, especially if you're in the Midwest, just saying no straight up can be a little tough for people to hear. So the last thing in terms of finding pace is doing something for you. And it can go along the lines of finding ways to relieve stress. In order to really find and recognize stress, though, you have to spend time with yourself. You have to spend time with yourself to know what stress feels like in your body. Is it the shrugging? Is it the tenseness in the shoulders? Is it the clenching of the jaw or a sore jaw because you are clenching all the time, but you don't recognize it? We also carry stress in our hips. Stress can also be external. And so for me, it was the sleeping part. I guess like internally it's feeling tired. The action would be sleeping a lot. Also, when I'm stressed, I avoid my to-do list. I'd rather just like do nothing. If it's too long, there's too much going on, I will just avoid it altogether. Another way that I know that I handle stress is I can be a pretty short-tempered person. I have too much going on. I don't have time for BS. We got to keep things moving. So I know that that's ways that I feel stress. And so for you, like, what does it feel like in your body? What are the actions that come out of that? Or questions to ask yourself. Like I said, you have to be in tune with yourself, and that means spending time with you. Again, one of those ways that I mentioned that I like to spend time with me is in nature. And now that I teach yoga out in the parks, I'm all about taking off the socks, putting your feet in the grass. Sometimes it's taking a walk outside. There's this podcast episode I listened to, and the guest on there was this woman who is a blog writer. And before she writes, she typically writes in the morning, but before she writes, she takes a walk outside. No music, which some of you are probably like, what? Yes. Try it. Going for a walk, no music, feeling the wind on your skin, feeling or hearing the birds sing, and really just allowing the thoughts to come and to go with no expectation. You don't have to really sit with them because you're outside, you're moving, and you can allow the other senses, sight, hear, smell, to be more engaged, which I think which takes away from the thoughts sometimes. They're just like there. And sometimes you can just kind of like brainstorm or process through those thoughts on your walk. Again, and not having the distraction of your phone or music. You can really settle in with it. Forest bathing, being out amongst the trees in a park is really nice. Like I said, finding ways to be with yourself is really helpful in learning and finding ways to relieve stress. So to recap on those things, one is reflect on those things that make you feel stressful. Find ways what are some strategies or things that you can do to relieve stress, strategies and ways to say no, and ways to spend time with yourself. Now, pace, this came about for me because we're starting where I'm from here again in the Midwest. We're starting to transition from winter into our spring season and then into summer. And winter is a time where we are settled inside. We're not doing much, right? We're spending a lot of time with ourselves, sometimes in front of the TV. But events in the winter aren't really big because space is limited. But now that spring is starting and summer is coming, it's starting to warm up, and outdoor space becomes unlimited. We get to be in the parks and at the beach, etc. And so events start to pick up. And I already noticed myself saying, oh, I cannot wait till summer so I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. And I thought, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. All right, let's just slow it down. Again, be present, first of all, and take things as they come. Pace, summer is a lot. I think sometimes that summer happens and remember, go, go, go. We end up falling asleep on the couch and then waking up at 1 a.m. not even knowing that we fell asleep on the couch because we were so tired of go, go, go. And I was thinking about the plants. There's this tree outside of one of my windows, and it's starting to produce buds, and the plants are starting to come out of the ground. And it was kind of like this reflection for me of even plants, flowers, take their time in coming out of the ground and being active. How can I do that as well? As spring comes on, how can I continue to have this winter energy while slowly introducing things back in and not immediately jumping in? I already have Facebook requests for events happening next month and into May, and I know it's just going to continue to come forth. So the challenge here is to continue this like winter pace, this winter energy into these new seasons. Finding stress relievers, going bowling with family or friends, renaming your to-do list. I love to name mine. It's a to accomplish list. To-do list was getting overwhelming for me. And so what can I accomplish? And also giving myself the freedom to not have to do everything on there, but to accomplish things. I'm also one of those people who loves to cross things out. So that's why I have a list. And I also love to add things into it that I've done and then cross that off as well. With the podcast, I made an Excel sheet of things I needed to do or to accomplish. And then I had a different column so that when I actually did accomplish those things, I moved it over. And so now I have this list of all the things I've accomplished to make this podcast happen. And you can see the actual to accomplish list minimize. And that was really exciting, and making this happen, because there's a lot of things that go in into this episode, or into even just like making this. So as we continue again into the spring semester, come on, subconscious. That's like me trying to talk to my past self, I think. As we get into this spring season and into summer, how can we slow it down to do those things that bring us joy? Maybe only doing those things that bring us joy and not having to do everything. And I think COVID taught us that we have the opportunity to stay in, and that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to do everything. The final sip is to check in with yourself. Remember, to the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. Go in peace, and I'll catch you in the next episode.